I wasn't given a fake script. I was just given a script that was like blacked out.
Marvel stepped in and said, do this crazy thing, but do it after we finish Thor.
There's a level of expectation that they have that is just not realistic.
They wore the suits, they said the lines, but what Marvel stars are revealing now will change how you see the MCU forever. Fake scripts, silenced voices, contracts are designed to erase them. This isn't just a betrayal, it's a warning. And the most chilling part? You've already seen it happen. Marvel's Prison of Secrets. They told us it was magic. They made us believe in their version of heroes. But behind the billion-dollar smiles and the perfectly lit press junkets, something darker was boiling beneath the surface. Disney didn't just craft a cinematic universe. It built a fortress of secrecy, intimidation, and manipulation. And now, the very stars who built that empire are starting to crack. Chris Hemsworth, Tom Holland, Scarlett Johansson, they're no longer just Marvel's poster children. They're whistleblowers. And if what they're hinting is true, then you have been lied to for years. So why did Marvel intentionally give its biggest stars fake scripts? Why was Tom Holland treated like a ticking time bomb? And why did Scarlett Johansson need to sue the very studio that made her a household name? The truth is, Disney's obsession with secrecy wasn't just about plot twists. It was about control. And in the next few minutes, we'll walk you through the quotes, the lawsuits, and the shocking moments that fans were never supposed to hear, including the moment Chris Hemsworth accidentally confirmed what insiders have been whispering for years. But first, the moment the dam started to break.
To this great business. We wanted to do the same thing with the writers, and we'd like to do the same thing with the actors. There's a level of expectation that they have that is just not realistic. And they are adding to a set of challenges.
That's Disney CEO Bob Iger, effectively calling striking actors and writers, including many from Marvel, unrealistic. The context? The 2023 Hollywood strikes, where actors demanded not just fair pay, but protection from AI, streaming exploitation, and the endless squeezing of talent for profit. Now imagine hearing that from the man who earns over $27 million a year while telling struggling actors they're too greedy. This wasn't just corporate coldness, this was the curtain being pulled back. And suddenly, Marvel's perfect image started to crumble. Let's rewind. For years, Tom Holland, the lovable face of Spider-Man, has been accidentally leaking major Marvel secrets. But dig deeper, and you'll realize it wasn't just clumsiness. It was a symptom of a paranoid system. In one interview, Tom revealed that he wasn't even allowed to read full scripts.
I'm not allowed to read the scripts because I'm so bad at keeping secrets.
Now ask yourself, why would a studio deliberately keep its lead actor in the dark? Because when your empire depends on illusion, trust is a liability. Instead, Disney developed a culture of compartmentalization, partial scripts, redacted lines, and even fake scenes. These are not jokes. These are psychological containment strategies used on adult professionals. Disney turned billion-dollar productions into top-secret war rooms, where the actors became liabilities, and the fans, just pawns. Even when Tom did learn something, it was almost too much for him to hold in.
So I'll ring them up and be like, hey, by the way, Iron Man dies.
There it is, one of the biggest spoilers in Marvel history, casually dropped because the pressure to hold secrets became physically unbearable. What kind of system does that to its own talent? And yet, Disney didn't course correct. Instead, it went further. It gave some actors multiple fake scripts. It built alternate endings. And it handed out NDAs longer than the actual movie scripts. This wasn't storytelling anymore. It was surveillance. Chris Hemsworth, while still loyal to the brand, has also begun reflecting on the toll that playing Thor has taken. It wasn't just his body. It was the control over his image, career, and physical well-being.
Marvel stepped in and said, do this crazy thing, but do it after we finish Thor.
Let that sink in. Hemsworth was attempting a personal documentary challenge for Disney-owned National Geographic, and Marvel overruled it because it might jeopardize Thor's body image. This is a company that treats its stars like action figures, expected to be indestructible, obedient, and camera-ready. And yet, when the cameras stop rolling, who protects them? Now let's talk Scarlett.
I think it's really, everything is changing now. It's sort of new territory, new frontier. And, I think it can kind of be a lonely sort of road when you kind of go out and do something like, that's sort of uncharted territory.
Her lawsuit was more than just a contractual dispute. It was a turning point. When Black Widow was simultaneously released in theaters and on Disney+, Johansson sued Disney for violating her contract, which promised her a cut of box office profits. Streaming the movie undercut that deal, quietly, deceptively, and Disney's response? They accused her of being callous for filing the lawsuit during a global pandemic. That's right, they invoked COVID, as if Johansson's demand to be paid what she was owed was somehow selfish or inappropriate. They framed it it like she was attacking them, the very same studio exploiting her image to sell their streaming platform. She fought back and eventually won. But in her own words, "I'm really happy that no one else will have to deal with what I had to deal with." Her lawsuit revealed that the studio had breached her contract by releasing Black Widow on streaming without renegotiating her deal, effectively slashing her earnings while boosting Disney Plus subscriptions. In other words, Disney's model of deception and exploitation wasn't just a fluke, it was the plan. And what happens when actors start talking about it publicly? You get spin, deflection, gaslighting. When Iger was asked if AI might replace writers and actors, his response wasn't concern, it was warning.
It will have a very, very damaging effect on the whole business, and unfortunately,
The strike will.
there's huge collateral damage in the industry.
It's easy to forget that many of these stars came from nothing. Chris Hemsworth told the story of how his Hollywood dream was born out of financial desperation.
I remember sitting in the careers advisory office in high school and being asked what I wanted to do when I finished school. And I said, I want to go to Hollywood. And they're like, okay, cool, what's your backup? And I said, I don't have one. I just had this sort of naive obsession.
That obsession built Disney's empire. That obsession filled stadiums and sold out premieres. And in return, contracts that get broken, scripts that are redacted, bodies that are controlled. What kind of workplace does that to its employees? Let's be blunt. Marvel, under Disney, wasn't just hiding spoilers. It was strategically disorienting its cast. Holland admitted he often didn't even know which actors were in the scene with him. That's how deep the deception ran. And he wasn't alone. Mark Ruffalo, another infamous spoiler, once accidentally live-streamed the first 20 minutes of Thor Ragnarok from the red carpet. A mistake? Sure, but it underlined something critical. Even the stars themselves were confused, fatigued, and overwhelmed by the layers of Marvel secrecy. Chris Evans later joked that the fake scripts were insurance policies against slip-ups, but that insurance came at a cost: confusion, anxiety, and, most importantly, detachment. Imagine filming a movie where you don't know who's alive, who's dead, or what timeline you're in. This wasn't just protecting a story, it was manipulating perception. And while fans believed they were cheering for a united team, behind closed doors, the Avengers cast were being systematically fragmented, filtered, and fed only what Disney wanted them to know. Marvel fans thought they were witnessing heroes uniting on screen, but off-screen, those same heroes were being divided, isolated, and, in some cases, legally bound from telling the truth. The Avengers weren't just fighting Thanos. They were navigating NDAs, fake scripts, body mandates, and lawsuits, all while putting on a smile for the camera. And it wasn't just the stars. Writers were suffering too. Behind the curtain, creatives were begging for scraps while CEOs cashed out. Disney's greatest illusion wasn't on screen. It was convincing you that everyone backstage was happy. But that illusion is dying. Now let's reveal the leaked conversation that Disney PR has worked overtime to bury. The Avengers who tried to escape. And here's the cold truth. Several Marvel stars didn't just step away from their roles. They were pushed, silenced, or strategically erased. The studio's grip was so tight, some Avengers didn't walk, they ran. And once they broke free, their stories started to sound very different from the press tours you remember. Let's start with Chris Hemsworth. He was the face of Thunder. But after Thor, Love and Thunder, something shifted. He didn't just hint at fatigue, he spoke about his entire identity unraveling. In his Limitless series, produced by Disney-owned National Geographic, Hemsworth wasn't just doing stunts. He was confronting something terrifying, a high genetic risk of Alzheimer's. It was a private health revelation, made public. But that wasn't even the shocking part. What truly shocked fans was how it coincided with his silence around Thor. At a moment when Disney was supposedly nurturing him as a brand, Hemsworth's memory loss story was instead used for PR, a story arc, a talking point. And then he said this.
Again, I don't know if I'm even invited back, but if I was, I think it'd have to be drastically different version.
That is not a confident star. That is an actor bracing for exile, a man who gave Marvel a decade of his life and was repaid with uncertainty. So ask yourself, why would Marvel ghost its most bankable star? Why would it suddenly go silent on Thor's future? One word: leverage. Marvel has made it painfully clear that no star is irreplaceable. That includes Hemsworth, it includes Johansson, and it even includes Robert Downey Jr. Let that sink in. RDJ was the heartbeat of the MCU. His arc was so meticulously crafted that fans wept at Tony Stark's final sacrifice. But just a year after Endgame, Disney began erasing his name from awards campaigns. Why? Because honoring his performance meant acknowledging his worth, his legacy, his negotiating power. Instead, Disney pivoted hard toward newer, younger, cheaper stars. The strategy was simple: replace the icons before they became too powerful. And it wasn't just happening at the top. Marvel writers and showrunners were seeing their ideas reshaped, erased, or repurposed by AI. Don't believe it? Remember Victoria Alonso, one of the most powerful executives at Marvel Studios? a queer Latina woman, suddenly fired in 2023. Disney claimed it was due to her work on Argentina, 1985, but insiders said otherwise, suggesting it was about creative clashes over VFX and marginalized representation. That's not just corporate politics, that's retaliation. Let's circle back to Tom Holland, Marvel's golden child. For years, Holland played the spoiler king, but look closer, and his anxiety wasn't just about keeping secrets. It was about being gaslit by a machine that wouldn't even tell him who he was working with.
So I'd be doing a scene with someone, and when it would come to say the character's name of the person I was working with, it would just be blank.
Marvel didn't just withhold plot points, they removed context. They stripped away trust. And if that wasn't enough, Holland was later told he had died in Infinity War, without a clear explanation of how he'd come back. Think about that. One of the highest-grossing franchises in history wouldn't give its lead actor a full script. Why? Because fear is cheaper than trust. And speaking of fear, no one embodied Marvel's paranoia better than Mark Ruffalo. Yes, he live-streamed Thor Ragnarok. Yes, he spoiled Infinity War by saying everybody dies. But here's the twist. Ruffalo wasn't wrong, and Marvel's reaction wasn't punishment. It was containment. When Ruffalo slipped, Marvel didn't fire him. They laughed it off. Why? Because firing him would mean admitting that truth leaked out. Better to play it like a joke than admit they had lost control. Control. That's the word that keeps coming back. Because what Disney has built is not a studio. It's a behavioral system. One designed to extract, elevate, and eject talent the moment they become a liability. Don't believe it? Ask Jeremy Renner. After years as Hawkeye, Renner was suddenly sidelined. No solo movie, no leadership arc. Then, in 2023, he suffered a life-threatening accident. And how did Disney respond? Silence, no official tribute, no MCU-wide support, just muted reposts and awkward distance. It's almost as if Renner was no longer useful to the narrative, and maybe that's the scariest part of all, that this universe fans love is designed to discard people, that Marvel doesn't build legends. It cycles through useful faces and buries what doesn't fit the formula. That's why the fans were lied to. Not just about plot twists, but about the very foundation of what the MCU is. It's not a family, it's a machine, and it's fueled by recycled identities, redacted scripts, and legal threats. So, what happens when you do escape Marvel's clutches? Here's the catch. You don't really. Because even outside the walls of the MCU, Disney still controls the narrative, and in some cases, the actor's voice, body, and image long after they've walked away. All rumors of a Black Widow sequel or prequel series, dead. Mentions of Natasha in new crossover content, vanishingly rare. It's like the character was quietly euthanized. This is how Disney buries its past, not with closure, but with redirection. And fans, they're fed nostalgia bait and told to move on. You don't think it's a pattern? Look at Chris Evans. Captain America's send-off in Endgame was poetic, almost too poetic. Because while the ending appeared to give closure, Evans's departure wasn't just emotional, it was strategic. Rumors swirled about contract friction and fatigue, but what's more likely? That Evans, who'd given 10 years of his life, wanted out before the grip tightened further. But here's the twist. Even after walking away, he can't really escape. Disney owns his likeness. They can resurrect him in flashbacks, deepfakes, multiverse storylines, or AI-generated sequences, without him ever stepping on set. And no, that's not sci-fi. It's the direction Disney is actively exploring. During the 2023 strikes, one of the most explosive demands from SAG-AFTRA was the right for actors to own and approve any AI replicas of their faces or voices. Why? Because major studios, including Disney, are quietly building digital doubles. A source from Secret Invasion's VFX team told Variety that Marvel has experimented with AI tools to replicate background actors, and even major star footage to fill in narrative gaps. Narrative gaps. Like if an actor quits, or sues, or says the wrong thing. That's not storytelling, that's synthetic replacement. So when Chris Hemsworth wonders aloud if he's even invited back to play Thor, it might not be a joke. It might be that Disney already has what it needs to digitally resurrect him forever. And now fans are starting to feel it. In recent films like Quantumania, Secret Invasion, and The Marvels, something is missing. Something human, something spontaneous, something real. And the irony? The more Disney tightens its grip, the more its universe starts to feel lifeless. Fans need to understand. The lies aren't just about secrets. They're about ownership of the narrative, of the actors, of your emotions. Let's go deeper into the vault, the lost projects, the forbidden interviews, the confidential contracts that prevent actors from ever speaking out. What are Disney's next moves? How are they preparing to reboot the MCU with faces you didn't ask for and voices that aren't real? The illusion of choice. By now, the pattern is clear. Marvel doesn't just build movies, it builds illusions. It casts actors, not just into roles, but into contracts, compartments, and compliance. And what fans thought was creative freedom was often just pre-approved marketing dressed as magic. But what if the real revelation isn't what Marvel's been hiding, but what it's planning next? Let's pull back the final curtain. In 2022, whispers began circulating through insider blogs. Marvel was experimenting with AI-generated content, not just for writing assistants, but for actor likeness reproduction, deepfake tests, tests, voice synthesis, body scans licensed indefinitely. The foundation for this was already laid. If you think that's paranoid, consider this. Disney has long required its top stars to submit to full body scans for VFX. While initially used to enhance fight scenes or simulate younger versions of characters, think Captain Marvel or Captain America Civil War, the files themselves, owned by the studio. Now pair that with the rise of AI. Studios are no longer just protecting IP. They're building digital actors, not actors played by humans, actors that replace them. Just last year, SAG-AFTRA's strike centered around this very fear, that studios would scan a background actor once, pay them once, and use them forever in crowds, scenes, or even full dialogue, without another cent of compensation. That's not hypothetical. That's already happened. And Disney is one of the largest holders of actor performance data in Hollywood history, which brings us back to you, the audience. You didn't ask for synthetic performances. You didn't ask for deep-faked characters. You didn't ask for CGI nostalgia made from contracts, not care. But Disney is banking on you not noticing, or worse, accepting it. They want to normalize replacement. The reboot is not a storytelling trick. It's a cost-cutting strategy. Why deal with actor egos, lawsuits, salaries, when you can roll out a forever young, fully rendered Iron Man voiced by AI and textured with 15 years of crowd-tested data? Robert Downey Jr. doesn't even need to be in the room. And guess what? He may not have a choice. Even when Marvel actors leave, they don't always control the rights to their digital scans, motion capture performances, or archived recordings. That's why James Earl Jones signed over his Darth Vader voice to AI reproduction. It was the only way to control it. The same fate could face Evans, Hemsworth, Johansson, all of them. And this is the final lie, that you, the fan, are still choosing. Marvel has made it look like every movie is a collaboration between studio and audience. They say they listen to fans, but what they're really doing is predicting your engagement, feeding it into algorithms, and delivering the optimized illusion of risk. Multiverses, reboots, variants, they're not just plot devices, they're legal shields. Want to kill a character? Done. Want to bring them back? Done. Want to reboot the entire franchise with younger, cheaper actors playing the same roles? Or AI versions of the originals? Done. No consequences, no accountability, just infinite synthetic possibility, all owned by the mouse. And that's why some stars are breaking silence now. Tom Holland is stepping back, taking breaks, refusing to commit to more films. Not because he doesn't love Spider-Man, but because Spider-Man doesn't love him back. Not in this system. Even Downey post-Endgame has shifted into documentaries, indie films, and personal passion projects. Because what's left to explore when your legacy can be copy-pasted? And maybe the most chilling comment of all? Scarlett Johansson smiled and said, "I'm done. Not now. Not maybe later. Just done. She was the first to fight, the first to win, and possibly the last to leave with her dignity intact. So what's next? Marvel will announce reboots, they'll recast beloved characters, they'll drop Easter eggs, nostalgia trailers, and AI-generated de-aging that makes you feel like it's 2008 all over again. But here's what they won't do. Give actors long-term creative control. Allow writers full freedom without algorithmic notes. Pay fair residuals for streaming, or stop creating AI clones of their stars. Because for Marvel, choice is the enemy of consistency. And you, the fan, were never supposed to notice. But now you have. You've seen the redacted scripts, the lawsuits, the silencing, the blackouts. You've heard the real voices behind the masks, tired, disoriented, trying to hold on to some part of themselves. The MCU didn't end with Endgame. It just became a simulation. And the next time you see Iron Man smile, if the Marvel Cinematic Universe was once about heroes uniting, today it's about identities unraveling, not in the plot, but in real life. Because the deeper you go into Disney's machine, the more you realize actors were never invited to be themselves. They were rented, redacted, recorded, and replaced. And now, even the ones who haven't spoken out directly, their eyes say what their lips can't. Take Brie Larson, a lightning rod of fan polarization from the start, and now one of the MCU's most carefully handled stars. At D23, when asked if she would continue playing Captain Marvel, her response was devastatingly honest. No joke, no PR line, just raw doubt, from someone who should be leading Marvel's next era. And why wouldn't she feel this way? Despite the Marvels being a continuation of her journey, much of the promotional focus was handed to newer characters. Her role, downplayed, her interviews, carefully limited, her passion, muted, because Disney knows, when control slips, you scale back exposure before the cracks show. The same thing happened with Letitia Wright after her controversial pandemic-era comments. Once hailed as the heir to the Black Panther mantle, she was swiftly repositioned as one of many walk-and-done voices, rather than the face of a franchise. This is the illusion of choice at its peak. Tell the audience the mantle is being passed, but leave just enough ambiguity to retract it later if things go wrong. Even Oscar Isaac, who wowed critics in Moon Knight, expressed uncertainty about continuing, not because of poor reception, but because Marvel gave no clear contract path forward. Instead of commitment, they gave him options, which really means leverage for them, not for him. And the list goes on. Don Cheadle, Simu Liu, Benedict Cumberbatch, Elizabeth Olsen, the agents, audience with golden handcuffs. Why? Because Marvel doesn't build stars anymore. It builds interchangeable assets. But here's the most terrifying part. In 2024, industry insiders leaked that Disney had been quietly testing AI-generated trailer voices, simulating iconic actors for promo content without needing them to record. Not full scenes, not yet, but enough to gauge audience reaction. The verdict? Most viewers couldn't tell the difference. We're not just losing the stars, we're losing the soul of storytelling. Because in a world of AI, recycled arcs, and digital doubles, Marvel's biggest villain isn't Kong or Ultron or even Thanos. It's predictability. The kind that comes from a boardroom, not a writer's room. And they're betting you won't care, as long as the explosions look cool and the soundtrack slaps. But we do care, because we remember what it felt like when Iron Man's hand trembled. When Steve Rogers said, "I can do this all day." When Natasha leapt for Clint without hesitation. Those moments didn't come from algorithms. They came from people. Actors who felt something, writers who fought for something, directors who took risks. But now, those people are being phased out. So here's the truth. Stripped of illusion, you've been lied to. Not because Disney is evil, but because Disney is obsessed with safety. Safe narratives, safe PR, safe profits. And when you prioritize safety over honesty, you start swapping truth for likeness, authenticity for efficiency, human creativity for controlled simulation. It starts with fake scripts, then fake smiles, then fake people. And if fans don't start demanding better, Marvel won't stop. Because illusion is the business model now. And every time you cheer for a digitally resurrected hero, you're voting for a future without the very stars who made you care in the first place. Roll credits? Not yet. Because the heroes behind the masks, the real ones, are still out there. They're pushing back, taking breaks, speaking quietly, suing publicly. And their stories? They're the ones that matter now. Because as the machine replaces feeling with formula, the people who escaped it have the only thing left worth listening to: the truth. What are your thoughts on these shocking star leaks? Do you think there's more to the story? Share your thoughts in the comments below.
A full-scale rebellion is brewing behind the scenes at Marvel as stars declare war on Disney CEO Bob Iger. Jeremy Renner's explosive rejection of Disney's insult offer is just the beginning.
I'm like, wow, it's going to take me twice the amount of work for half the amount of money.
Meanwhile, other MCU stars are joining the revolution, publicly condemning Iger's leadership.
There's a level of expectation that they have that is just not realistic.
The shocking secret meetings, career-ending threats, and the 3 A-list stars ready to walk away forever. This is the Marvel Civil War they don't want you to know about. The shocking revelation. Jeremy Renner's insulting offer. In early May 2025, during an interview with the High Performance app that was shared on TikTok, Renner made the jaw-dropping claim that Disney had offered him only half of his previous salary for a potential second season of the Disney Plus series Hawkeye. This revelation, documented across multiple entertainment news outlets including Hindustan Times, IndieWire, and People, came as a particular shock considering Renner's long-standing position as one of the original Avengers and his significant contribution to the Marvel Cinematic Universe over more than a decade. What makes this situation even more remarkable is the timing and context surrounding Disney's offer. As many of you will recall, Jeremy Renner suffered a near-fatal snowplow accident on New Year's Day 2023, resulting in over 35 broken bones and multiple titanium replacements. The actor endured a grueling rehabilitation journey, which he later detailed in his memoir, My Next Breath, released on April 29, 2024. It was against this backdrop of recovery and resilience that Renner claims Disney approached him with the reduced salary offer. In his own words during the High Performance interview, Renner expressed his disbelief at the proposal.
I'm like, I'm sorry. Why? Did you think I'm only half the Jeremy because I got ran over? Maybe that's why you want to pay me half?
The actor's pointed reference to his accident adds a particularly poignant dimension to this dispute, suggesting he felt the offer might have been connected to perceptions about his physical capabilities post-recovery. Adding insult to injury, according to Renner, this halved salary was proposed despite expectations for twice the amount of work and an 8-month time commitment for the second season. The stark contrast between increased workload and decreased compensation left the actor feeling that he had no choice but to decline the offer. It's worth noting that Renner was careful to distinguish between Disney's financial department and Marvel Studios in his criticism. This is not Marvel, mind you. This is like just Disney, not even really Disney. It's just the penny pinchers, the accountants, he clarified. This distinction suggests Renner's issue is specifically with the business side of operations, rather than the creative team with whom he's collaborated for years. The actor's response to the offer was unequivocal. He rejected it outright, telling Disney's financial team to go fly a kite, as he colorfully phrased it. Despite this strong stance, glance, Renner emphasized that his love for the Hawkeye character remains unchanged. "I still love the character. I'd still love to do it, but I had to defend myself." What makes this situation particularly interesting is that it's not an isolated incident. Industry observers have noted similar patterns with other actors. John Malkovich, who is set to appear in the Fantastic Four First Steps 2025, revealed he had previously turned down Marvel roles for years due to what he perceived as insufficient pay for the demanding nature of superhero productions. "If you're going to hang from a crane in front of a green screen for 6 months, pay me," Malkovich stated, highlighting the physical and time demands these roles often entail. Additionally, reports have suggested that other actors like Hugo Weaving, who played Red Skull, and Carrie Coon have also walked away from Marvel roles over what they considered lowball offers, though specific details of these negotiations remain less public. To fully appreciate the context of Renner's situation, it's important to consider the typical compensation structure for MCU stars. Top earners like Robert Downey Jr. reportedly received around $75 million for Avengers Endgame, while Chris Hemsworth and Scarlett Johansson have commanded approximately $20 million per film in recent years. These figures have been widely reported in industry publications, creating a stark contrast with Renner's reported offer. For his part, Renner's MCU earnings have reportedly ranged from $3 million to $15 million for previous films, making the alleged pay cut for Hawkeye Season 2 all the more dramatic. While exact figures for his Season 1 compensation haven't been publicly disclosed, industry estimates suggest the proposed reduction would represent a significant financial step backward for the actor. This controversy has certainly caught the attention of fans, many of whom have expressed strong support for Renner on social media platforms. On X, formerly Twitter, posts expressing disappointment with Marvel's decision have gained significant traction. One notable comment urged, "Pay that man his money," while another user criticized Marvel directly, "Hey, at Marvel Studios, that's messed up, no? Maybe next time you cannot insult one of your original and longest-lasting cast members in a time when you're not exactly lighting the world on fire." Particularly noteworthy is how fans have connected Renner's situation to his personal challenges following the accident. The sentiment that Disney should be more considerate given his recovery journey has resonated strongly within the fan community, with some expressing that the offer feels particularly callous in light of what the actor has endured. Some fans have even speculated about potential future negotiations, with one commenting, "After the reveal and Thunderbolts, and Haley using her new leverage after Hash Sinners, he'll get paid." This references Haley Steinfeld's rising star power following her success in projects outside the MCU, suggesting her increased leverage might indirectly benefit Renner in future discussions. Disney, for their part, has remained relatively quiet about the specific details of the negotiation. An unnamed Disney insider cited by IndieWire disputed Renner's claims, but notably failed to provide specific details to counter his statements. This lack of transparency has only fueled further speculation about the nature of the offer and Disney's approach to talent compensation more broadly. The situation raises important questions about how actors are valued in an era of expanding streaming content and changing business models. For a character like Hawkeye, who has been part of the MCU since nearly the beginning, fans might reasonably expect compensation to reflect that long-standing contribution to the franchise's success. Adding another layer to this already complex situation is Renner's potential involvement in future MCU projects beyond Hawkeye. Despite the salary dispute, there have been indications that Renner might return as Hawkeye in Avengers Doomsday, scheduled for release on May 1st, 2026. In an August 2024 interview, Renner hinted at his involvement, stating he is really excited and thinks he'll probably be doing it. This suggests that while the Hawkeye series negotiations have reached an impasse, doors remain open for Renner's return in other capacities. Production on Avengers Doomsday reportedly began in April 2025, with a cast including Chris Hemsworth as Thor, Vanessa Kirby as Sue Storm, Invisible Woman, and Anthony Mackie as Sam Wilson, Captain America, among others. So what does the future hold for Hawkeye in the MCU if Jeremy Renner were to permanently step away? The most likely scenario would see Kate Bishop, played by Haley Steinfeld, continuing the Hawkeye legacy. The Hawkeye series already established her as Clint Barton's protege, creating a natural transition path. Marvel could focus on developing new storylines for Kate, possibly incorporating her into projects like Young Avengers, which has been rumored to be in development. Such a transition would align with Marvel's broader strategy of introducing younger heroes and passing mantles to new characters, as seen with Anthony Mackie taking over as Captain America from Chris Evans. However, Renner's departure would unquestionably represent a significant loss for the franchise, given his long tenure and the fan attachment to his portrayal. As we continue to monitor this developing story, it's clear that the relationship between major studios and their talent remains a delicate balance of creative partnership and business negotiation. A pattern emerges: Marvel's history of financial disputes with stars. The Marvel Cinematic Universe, which has generated unprecedented box office success over its nearly two-decade existence, has not been immune to behind-the-scenes financial conflicts. In fact, a careful examination of the franchise's history reveals that Jeremy Renner's situation, while certainly dramatic, follows a well-established pattern of salary disputes that have periodically threatened to disrupt the carefully constructed MCU narrative. Perhaps the most famous or infamous early example of such a dispute involved Terrence Howard, who portrayed James Rhodes, later War Machine, in the original Iron Man 2008. What many casual fans may not realize is that Howard was initially paid more than Robert Downey Jr. for the first film, a reflection of Howard's star power at the time, and the perceived risk associated with casting Downey, who was then in the process of rebuilding his career. However, following the unexpected mega success of Iron Man, Howard's compensation was significantly reduced for future projects, reportedly due to budget reallocations that favored increasing Downey's salary. This dramatic pay cut ultimately led to Howard's departure from the franchise, with Don Cheadle stepping in to take over the role of James Rhodes' War Machine for Iron Man 2 and all subsequent appearances. Howard has been vocal about his frustration with this situation over the years, making it clear that financial considerations played a major role in his exit from what would become one of cinema's most successful franchises. This early instance set a precedent that we would see repeated in various forms throughout the MCU's evolution. Another high-profile dispute that captivated industry attention involved Scarlett Johansson, who had been portraying Natasha Romanoff Black Widow since Iron Man 2. In July 2021, Johansson took the extraordinary step of filing a lawsuit against Disney, alleging breach of contract related to the release strategy for her solo film Black Widow. At the heart of Johansson's claim was the decision to release Black Widow simultaneously in theaters and on Disney Plus Premier Access during the COVID-19 pandemic. The actress alleged this dual release strategy reduced box office revenue, which directly impacted her back-end compensation package that was tied to theatrical performance. Reports suggested Johansson sought approximately $80 million in damages on top of her $20 million base salary for the film. The dispute was ultimately settled in October 2021, with the terms undisclosed but estimated by industry insiders to exceed $40 million. While the specific circumstances of Johansson's case differ from Renner's current situation, both illustrate the ongoing tension between talent compensation and evolving business models in the entertainment industry, particularly as streaming has disrupted traditional revenue streams. Perhaps the most directly comparable precedent to the current Renner situation occurred following the monumental success of The Avengers 2012, which grossed over $1.5 billion worldwide and cemented the MCU as a box office juggernaut. Reports from 2013 indicated that several key Avengers actors, including Chris Hemsworth, Thor, and Chris Evans, Captain America, found themselves in contentious negotiations with Marvel over compensation for future appearances. These actors had signed what were later characterized as ungenerous contracts early in the MCU's development, before its financial success was assured. As the franchise grew exponentially in value, negotiations became increasingly tense. Marvel reportedly offered to triple Chris Hemsworth's contract, though they were not contractually obligated to do so in recognition of his growing importance to the franchise. Robert Downey Jr., who had shrewdly negotiated a percentage of profits rather than just a flat fee for his later appearances, leveraged his position as the MCU's center of gravity to secure increasingly substantial deals, reportedly earning around $75 million for Avengers Endgame, a far cry from the $500,000 he reportedly received for the first Iron Man film. These historical disputes highlight a recurring pattern in Marvel's approach to talent compensation. Initial contracts tend to favor the studio, with renegotiations becoming necessary as the franchise's success grows and actors gain leverage. The frequency of these disputes suggests a systematic approach to talent management that prioritizes controlling costs even as the overall franchise generates extraordinary revenues. But financial tensions within the MCU extend beyond just the major stars. Recent controversies have involved actors who, while not headlining their own films, have played crucial supporting roles in the franchise. For instance, reports emerged in 2025 that Carrie Coon had declined to return to the MCU over a salary dispute, though specific details remained private. Similarly, Hugo Weaving, who memorably portrayed the Red Skull in Captain America: The First Avenger, did not return for subsequent appearances, with financial considerations reportedly playing a role in that decision. The situation becomes even more complex when examining how Marvel's strategy has evolved in more recent phases of the MCU. Industry reports suggest that for Phase 4 and beyond, Marvel aimed to decrease tentpole actor salaries, part of a broader strategy emphasizing character brands rather than star power. This approach reportedly resulted in lower salaries for actors like Salma Hayek, Angelina Angelina Jolie and Richard Madden compared to what earlier MCU stars had commanded at similar points in their tenure. This strategic shift appears to reflect Disney's growing confidence in the Marvel brand itself, rather than the individual actors portraying the characters. While this might make financial sense from a corporate perspective, it risks alienating the very talents who bring these beloved characters to life, as we've seen with Renner's public rebuke of what he perceived as an inadequate offer. The disparity in compensation among MCU actors has also drawn increasing attention from fans and industry observers. For example, while Robert Downey Jr. earned approximately $75 million for Avengers Endgame, Chris Evans reportedly made around $20 million, and Chadwick Boseman earned approximately $2 million for Black Panther, a film that grossed over $1.3 billion worldwide. These significant gaps raise questions about equity and compensation, particularly when considering factors such as screen time, character importance, and contribution to the franchise's overall success. It's worth noting that some MCU actors have publicly acknowledged the complex nature of these negotiations without expressing outright dissatisfaction. Benedict Cumberbatch, who portrays Doctor Strange, has spoken about the business aspects of joining such a massive franchise while maintaining that he feels fairly compensated. Similarly, Paul Bettany, Vision, has discussed the evolution of his contract from a voice role as Jarvis to a full character with increased compensation, illustrating the potential for positive growth within the system. However, as evidenced by Jeremy Renner's recent statements, not all actors feel that their compensation has evolved appropriately with their contribution to the franchise. His rejection of what he described as an insult offer for Hawkeye Season 2 suggests that despite Disney's immense resources, there remains a tension between maximizing profitability and ensuring talent feels valued appropriately. This tension becomes particularly pronounced when considering the overall financial success of the MCU. As of 2025, the franchise has generated over $30 billion in global box office revenue, not including merchandise sales, theme park attractions, and the substantial value added to Disney's streaming platform. Against this backdrop of extraordinary financial success, offers that actors perceive as inadequate can appear particularly egregious. But financial disputes aren't the only area where Disney and its Marvel stars have found themselves at odds. In recent years, several MCU actors have publicly expressed disagreement with Disney CEO Bob Iger on various issues, from labor disputes to creative decisions. These conflicts add another dimension to the complex relationship between the studio and its talent roster. One notable example is Tatiana Maslany, who portrayed She-Hulk in the Disney Plus series of the same name. During the 2023 writers and actors strikes, Maslany criticized Iger as being completely out of touch with the workers who create Disney's content. She particularly highlighted the wealth disparity, pointing out that Disney's prosperity was not adequately shared with crew, cast, and writers. Her comments were part of a broader industry backlash against Iger's statements during the labor disputes, which many perceived as dismissive of striking workers' concerns. Similarly, Sean Gunn, who plays Kraglin and serves as the on-set reference for Rocket in the Guardians of the Galaxy films, publicly criticized Iger's remarks during the strikes. Speaking from the picket lines, Gunn directly addressed the massive pay disparity within Disney, stating, "I think when Bob Iger talks about what a shame it is, he needs to remember that in the 1980s, CEOs like him made 30 times more than what the lowest worker was making. Now Bob Iger makes 400 times what his lowest worker is, and I think that's a shame, Bob." Even Iman Vellani, star of The Marvels, has indirectly expressed disagreement with Iger. When asked about her film's disappointing box office performance, Vellani shifted responsibility to the CEO, stating simply, "That's for Bob Iger," and emphasizing that the results had nothing to do with me. While less confrontational than the comments from Maslany or Gunn, Vellani's statement nonetheless reflected a willingness to publicly distance herself from corporate disappointments and place accountability at the executive level. These examples demonstrate that financial disputes like Renner's exist within a broader context of tensions between Disney leadership and Marvel talent. The relationship between the studio and its stars appears increasingly strained across multiple dimensions, from compensation to broader industry issues like labor rights and creative direction. Perhaps most tellingly, even Bob Iger himself has acknowledged shortcomings in Marvel's recent trajectory. The bigger picture: Disney CEO Bob Iger and the future of the MCU. Bob Iger, who returned as Disney's CEO in November 2022 after previously serving from 2005 to 2020, has been a transformative figure in the company's history. Under his initial tenure, Disney acquired Pixar 2006, Marvel Entertainment 2009, Lucasfilm 2012, and 21st Century Fox 2019, dramatically expanding the company's intellectual property portfolio and establishing its dominant position in the entertainment industry. Since his return in late 2022, Iger has focused on reorganizing Disney into three branches: Disney Entertainment, Parks, Experiences, and Products, and ESPN. His leadership has been particularly focused on transforming Disney's streaming business and restoring creativity at the company's core goals that directly impact Marvel Studios' operations and output. However, Iger's leadership style and public comments have occasionally put him at odds with talent, particularly during periods of industry unrest. A prime example of this tension emerged during the 2023 Writers Guild of America, WGA, and Screen Actors Guild American Federation of Television and Radio Artists, SAG-AFTRA, strikes, when Iger made comments that many industry professionals, including Marvel stars, found dismissive of legitimate concerns. In a particularly notable interview, Iger described the strikes as very disturbing and characterized the expectations of writers and actors as just not realistic. Let's examine his exact words.
Speaking of content, we're in the midst of a writer's strike, and very likely it would seem to have a actor's strike. How is that going to impact things, and what are your expectations there?
Well, I think it's very disturbing to me. We've talked about disruptive forces on this business and all the challenges we're facing and the recovery from COVID, which is ongoing. It's not completely back. This is the worst time in the world to add to that disruption.
And when directly asked if the writers and actors were not being realistic, Iger responded affirmatively.
So they're not being realistic?
No, they're not.
Why not?
I can't answer that question. I respect their right and their desire to get as much as they possibly can in compensation for their people. I completely respect that. I've been around long enough to understand that dynamic and to appreciate it. But you also have to be realistic about the business environment and what this business can deliver.
These comments sparked immediate backlash from many in the entertainment industry, including several Marvel stars. As mentioned earlier, Tatiana Maslany, who portrays She-Hulk, criticized Iger as completely out of touch with the workers who create Disney's content, while Sean Gunn highlighted the 400-to-1 pay disparity between Iger and Disney's lowest paid workers. The strikes eventually concluded with new agreements that addressed many of the union's concerns, including protections against AI usage and improved streaming residuals. However, Iger's comments during this period created lasting tension between Disney leadership and the creative community, including many Marvel actors who participated in the strikes. This backdrop of labor disputes provides important context for understanding Jeremy Renner's salary negotiation. While Renner's situation predates the 2023 strikes, it reflects similar concerns about fair compensation in an evolving entertainment, a landscape. Renner specifically pointed to Disney's penny pinchers, rather than Marvel Studios, as the source of his frustration, suggesting that financial decisions at the corporate level are creating friction with talent. Beyond labor disputes, Iger has also made comments about Marvel's content strategy that have raised eyebrows among fans and industry observers. In December 2023, he suggested that the substance of MCU stories was partly to blame for box office struggles, particularly emphasizing what he perceived as too much focus on messages rather than entertainment. These comments drew criticism from creative figures like Peter Ramsey, co-director of Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, who defended the Marvels against Iger's implications. Fan discussions on platforms like Reddit also pushed back against Iger's framing, with many arguing that quality storytelling rather than ideological messaging was the primary concern for audiences. More recently, in February 2024, Iger outlined a plan to focus on larger MCU franchises as a strategy to save the superhero universe, indicating a potential shift toward more established characters and properties. This direction might have implications for newer characters and more experimental projects, potentially affecting the MCU's diversity of storytelling. Against this backdrop of strategic shifts and public statements, Disney's offer to Jeremy Renner takes on additional significance. Offering half the previous salary to an original Avenger could be interpreted as part of a broader strategy to reduce talent costs, particularly for Disney Plus productions. If true, this would align with reports that that Marvel has been aiming to decrease tentpole actor salaries in Phase 4 and beyond. But while cost control might make sense from a pure business perspective, it risks alienating the very talent that has made the MCU successful. Fan reactions to Renner's revelation have been overwhelmingly supportive of the actor, with many expressing disappointment in Disney's approach. Comments on social media posts reporting the dispute show strong sentiment in Renner's favor, with users urging Disney to pay that man his money and criticizing the studio for what they perceive as disrespect toward an original Avenger. The timing of the offer is particularly notable given Renner's recovery from his near-fatal accident. Many fans have pointed out that offering a reduced salary to an actor who has endured significant physical trauma seems especially tone-deaf. As one ex-user commented, disappointing that Disney won't pay an OG Avenger to return, especially after what he's gone through to get back to acting. This brings us to the crucial question: what could these disputes mean for the future of the MCU? Several potential impacts are worth considering. First, there's the immediate question of Hawkeye's future in the franchise. If Jeremy Renner permanently steps away due to compensation disagreements, the most likely scenario would see Kate Bishop, Haley Steinfeld, continuing the Hawkeye legacy. The Disney Plus series already established her as Clint Barton's protege, creating a natural transition. Marvel could focus on developing new storylines for Kate, possibly incorporating her into projects like Young Avengers, which has been rumored to be in development. Such a transition would align with Marvel's broader strategy of introducing younger heroes and passing mantles to new characters, as seen with Anthony Mackie taking over as Captain America from Chris Evans. However, Renner's departure would unquestionably represent a significant loss for the franchise, given his long tenure and the fan attachment to his portrayal. If Renner were to leave, Marvel would miss his experience and depth as an actor who has portrayed Hawkeye for over a decade. His depiction of Clint Barton as a relatable, grounded hero with a family life has added valuable contrast to the more fantastical elements of the MCU. Additionally, his established chemistry with other Avengers actors has contributed significantly to the ensemble dynamic that has been central to the franchise's success. However, there are indications that despite the Hawkeye series dispute, Renner may still be involved in other MCU projects. As mentioned earlier, he has hinted at appearing in Avengers Doomsday, scheduled for release on May 1st, 2026. This suggests that while television negotiations have reached an impasse, his character might continue to appear in theatrical releases. Beyond the specific issue of Hawkeye's future, these disputes highlight broader challenges facing the MCU as it navigates its second decade. The franchise is currently in a period of transition, with many original stars having departed or taking on reduced roles. This creates a delicate balance between honoring legacy characters and establishing new ones, a balance that could be disrupted by contentious salary negotiations with veteran actors. For more content like this, click on the videos showing on your screen now.